one of the worst places to go.
UFC Fighter Bay has sparked unprecedented outrage across the MMA community. Veteran legends express their fury, established stars voice their displeasure, and bottom-tier competitors openly declare their financial desperation.
You hear a lot of other people saying, well, you signed a contract, well, you negotiated this. It was like, yo, there is no negotiating.
Critics from all corners spotlight how the current structure systematically ensures most UFC athletes remain financially struggling.
UFC was the best place that you could come in combat sports to make a living and be paid fairly, and now it's no longer. It's one of the worst places to go. It's one of the. It's why so many of their top athletes are leaving to go and find pay elsewhere. It's why their champions like Valentina are selling pictures of their titties on OnlyFans.
This crisis unfolds while Dana White awards Conor Benn a staggering $15 million for one boxing bout. Paramount invests $7.7 billion in UFC broadcasting rights, and the organization enjoys record-breaking prosperity. Meanwhile, fighters face the identical predicament they've endured for years: surrender half their earnings, struggle to cover expenses, and hope Dana deems their performance worthy of bonus consideration. The promotion holds complete control over their destinies, yet shows little inclination to compensate them fairly. This examination reveals exactly how the UFC's framework ensures fighter poverty.
And fighters are getting taken advantage of. This is the most dangerous sport in the world, and the UFC, makes billions of dollars a year, and they're only paying their fighters 15% of that. Ari Emanuel, the CEO of Endeavor, his salary last year was more than the entire UFC roster. So these fighters are risking their lives for $10,000.
Everyone recognizes UFC Fighter Bay as a critical concern, particularly in today's climate.
And at some point, probably not in our lifetime, the fighters will come to realize that they are being treated like pro athletes in the major leagues, and yet they get zero benefits like the pro athletes in the major leagues. It's wild to me. They are now among the greatest sports franchises and leagues in America as far as rights deals are concerned, and they get zero the rights. They get zero revenue sharing. They get zero collective bargaining, no seat at the table, and now it's hitting them.
The core issue lies in revenue distribution. Traditional sports allocate approximately 50% of total earnings to athletes, while the UFC provides less than 20%.
Unless you create some kind of legally enforcing mechanism to make Zuffa, UFC, or TKO pay you what you are owed, you are not going to be paid what you are owed. This is not very difficult to understand, fellas.
Examining the actual figures reveals truly alarming statistics. UFC newcomers typically receive contracts worth $12,000 for showing up and another $12,000 for winning. Remember, these competitors have progressed through amateur and regional circuits to reach this level. They represent elite mixed martial artists, yet receive treatment befitting amateurs.
Like a few years before he was the flyweight champion, he was driving Uber or Uber Eats, like just trying to scrapping to get bills paid. And
consider this comparison. Rookie NFL players guarantee nearly $900,000 annually in their debut season. And here's an even starker contrast. The WNBA produced roughly $250 million in 2025, yet maintains a $300K minimum yearly salary. Meanwhile, the UFC generated $1.5 billion in 2025, and newcomers would celebrate reaching $100K annually. Deeper investigation into these realities makes the disparity even more shocking. Traditional sports guarantee rookie earnings regardless of circumstances. Players can suffer injuries, never participate in games, and still collect almost seven figures. Their medical coverage is comprehensive, travel expenses covered, plus numerous additional benefits. UFC competitors, however, operate as independent contractors rather than employees, which creates widespread complications. This classification eliminates healthcare coverage, travel reimbursements, tax assistance, and injury compensation completely. Consequently, numerous fighters compete while injured or infected because they desperately need income to avoid bankruptcy. They must still cover training facility costs, management percentages, and daily living expenses. Despite the new Paramount agreement establishing the UFC as a legitimate major American sports organization, the underground era has definitively ended. Many fighters maintain regular employment outside MMA, including Alishan Repantosha, who worked despite appearing on The Ultimate Fighter and fighting in multiple UFC events.
If all the fighters decided not to go to work until we have a signed agreement where it's 30-70, which would be insane improvement, which they could afford, 40-60, 50-50, whatever it is.
The bonus structure feels increasingly archaic for these reasons. Weekly scenes show fighters desperately pleading for bonuses. Even main event veterans with extensive UFC experience break down emotionally upon receiving $50K.
20 grand and 15 grand in sponsorship ain't shit.
In 2020, you were making more back then.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. I was making more than that. If you go through it, 7, 's 14, 7, that's 21. I was making more than the entire card combined.
Jeez.
In one fight.
Certainly, it's heartwarming and wonderful to witness, but you've just headlined a sold-out arena with 25,000 spectators while millions watched online, then become tearful over earnings that athletes in other sports make weekly. A top 15 or even top 50 competitor globally in any major sport shouldn't experience such reactions. The problem is this model has remained virtually unchanged since the UFC's earliest days. Since then, the sport achieved global reach, television contracts generate billions, production quality improved dramatically, fighter caliber increased substantially, inflation skyrocketed, yet compensation barely adjusted accordingly. Previously, receiving knockout bonuses when MMA was smaller felt incredible, but now it's backwards. UFC debutantes who lose earn $12K. After accounting for gym fees, travel costs, coaching expenses, management cuts, training investments, and nutrition, they're fortunate to break even. Through this system, the UFC maintains most roster members in essential poverty. Simply stated, fighters possess zero negotiating leverage. Only unionization could change this.
If I read it right, which I think I did, and then I even sent it to my dad, I'm like, did I read this right? And he said yes. So unless we're both can't read, they made over $1 million, Reebok made over $1 million on all my merch, and I got like $3,000. I'm like, what the
No, you both can read.
It's ridiculous. Well, I'm like, I thought I got 15%. Like, well, you get 15% of this,
Gross and
but of this,
Yep,
and then
yep.
these guys get it, and then you get 50% of that. I'm like, holy
That's dirty.
shit. So you gotta, and then they make all these sweet shirts on Reebok. I'm like, damn. I tell people, I'm like, don't buy that.
They must compete frequently and pursue exciting bonuses to significantly improve their finances. Most frighteningly, the UFC has actually reduced fighter earning opportunities over time, eliminating their independence until the organization controls everything.
They pay you whatever they want to pay you. They let you pretend that you're negotiating while you're not negotiating, because either way, you're still in the contract.
Newer fans might not recall when fighters wore whatever they chose inside the Octagon. Currently, all competitors must wear Venom equipment, and at best you might receive custom shorts if extremely fortunate. Before standardized uniforms, fighters used their shorts essentially as billboards. This might seem trivial, but with some recognition, you could generate substantial income through sponsorships, even without top-tier status. During Brendan Schaub's heavyweight career, sponsorship revenue constituted his primary earning source.
Performance tonight, Ewo and Dyer. And
However, to appear more established and structured as a sport, they signed a $70 million Reebok agreement, consequently eliminating fighters' ability to monetize their personal popularity. Even more outrageous, they actually profited from fighter fame themselves. Sean O'Malley publicly stated Reebok sold enormous quantities of his merchandise while providing him a pathetic compensation check.
It's about not being treated fairly. If I would have had, pay-per-view points on 11 consecutive title defense, you do the math. I would be way well off. So, yeah. So
did you get it?
No. I got it on one fight, and it's when I fought Henry Cejudo the second time. But these are all examples from the.
This pattern remains consistent across all UFC fighters from what we observe. The royalty arrangements imposed by the UFC are terrible. Fighters reported earning mere hundreds of dollars for inclusion in official UFC video games. While the second method preventing UFC fighters from earning more is less obvious, it's the most destructive overall. Throughout the years, fighters had alternatives, some superior to others. Strikeforce, Pride, Elite XC, Bellator, all provided potential income improvements or fallback options. Currently, though, the UFC essentially purchased or destroyed every competing MMA organization. Almost no competition exists anymore.
You'll have people like Ali Abdelaziz as manager who will come out, this is going to be great for everyone. But here's Justin Gaethje saying, like, yeah, how is it going to be great for me? Maybe on Saturday he'll find out that the bonuses are 100K. No one has asked that question yet. Maybe they ask it at today's press conference. But bottom line is, I give him credit for bringing this up because this is the harsh reality. Here's a guy who's one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, who's reaching the end of his career, the end of the road, and he's looking around and he's saying, I don't have much to show for.
The landscape may be shifting, but for many years, fighters had zero alternatives except accepting UFC terms, or they'd find someone else willing. Historically, substantial financial success required being a popular champion or someone with an extraordinary number of UFC appearances. Considering over 800 fighters hold company contracts, perhaps 10% maximum achieve that status. For the remaining 90%, it's bout to bout, payment to payment, and hoping bonuses can transform their financial circumstances despite competing in a multi-billion-dollar enterprise.
With this whole Paramount thing, I was kind of, we'll see how it turns out. I was kind of worried, like if you take pay-per-view off the table, how much is UFC going to put the biggest fights together? Because they don't need to sell pay-per-views. They're guaranteed money. Right. You know, I was just wondering if that would not water it down, but it would get a bunch of weaker cards, and I'm still waiting to find out, man.
Even Demetrius Johnson's case proves being a pound-for-pound great, one of the longest-reigning champions in sports history, and perhaps the most technical fighter ever, wasn't sufficient. He voiced complaints too.
You know, that's why Ronda decided to go to MVP and fight Gina, because they originally went to Dana, and she was like, hey, now that there's no pay-per-view, I want this guaranteed amount. And he was like, no, that's just not our business model. It's not what we do, because if we pay you all that money, then you know we're going to have to do that down the road. Yeah. Good luck somewhere else. She was all, say less. Yeah. I went to MVP, and they're like, here's a guaranteed money.
Recently, the UFC announced possibly its most significant agreement ever, signaling that after 3 decades of fighter compensation criticism, changes might be coming.
Okay, well, we're going to offer you this opponent. Yes, no problem, I accept. Day after day after day. No problem, we'll send the contract. Excellent, it's a great matchup, that's a great matchup, that's a great matchup. It's all you ever heard about out of me. And no contract came. And that's kind of where I'm at. Still here in this limbo.
This past January, Paramount assumed control as the UFC's broadcasting home, investing $7.7 billion for these rights. Immediately, improvements appeared promising. UFC bonuses finally increased, rising from $50K to $100K for 4 fighters per event. Additionally, any fighter not receiving a bonus but achieving a finish earns an extra $25,000. This development, combined with nearly $8 billion infusion, had the UFC community believing fighter compensation issues would disappear. Surely significant portions of that money would benefit the athletes, but this doesn't appear to be happening.
You hear a lot of other people saying, well, you signed a contract, well, you negotiated this. It was like, yo, there is no negotiating. Like, why do these guys keep thinking that? Like, it's you want to be here or not. And that's why I'm okay, because it's like, I'm okay with being here because there is no other place for us to go.
Instead, a growing theory among UFC fans suggests the promotion no longer prioritizes spectacular events like before. A significant aspect of the Paramount agreement involved eliminating traditional pay-per-views. The concept is that without them, the UFC lacks motivation to create loaded cards for their numbered events.
And now we find out about John Jones and the fact that the UFC basically didn't want to pay him anywhere near the amount that could even be considered for this card. We're hearing numbers closer to Conor Benn, which is about $15 million. And John Jones, obviously, and his team not even entertaining that.
Funnily enough,
without pay-per-view revenue, fighters cannot leverage their star power to generate income as previously possible.
John Jones needs to get paid, maybe not only for the fight that he's fighting, but for what he have done for the sport. For where he have taken the sport to. Isn't the John Jones that they are out there bragging that he's a GOAT? Man, if the GOAT is not respected, then who should be respected? I worry if the GOAT is being treated like that. I truly worry if that's how they treat the GOAT. Then those who are not the GOAT, I don't know, whatever they are, well, imagine what they are going through.
They now fulfill show quotas and receive their Paramount payments regardless of quality. This theory also suggests why the UFC has mishandled numerous major fights recently. Say what you will about the UFC, but failing to finalize big fights was never their weakness. When necessary, those enormous best versus best matchups almost always materialized. Recently, it's been chaotic. They couldn't secure Conor McGregor's return. lost Ronda Rousey to a Netflix project, and the biggest disappointment was Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall.
You want to see how disinterested Dana White is in all of this and how little he actually cares about the current state of the company? Take a listen to this clip right here regarding the rankings.
In the latest rankings update, Colby Covington was moved down just one slot in the welterweight rankings. The guy's fought once in the last 752 days and lost. His last win was March of 2022. How does a guy like that stay in the top 15 for years after not fighting?
It's a great point.
Do you have those conversations about the rankings where it's why is this guy like Jeff Neal was moved one spot above him? Strange, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
All these sport legends, individuals crucial to UFC success, have criticized how difficult dealing with their former company has become.
You've been in the UFC for well over a decade, former champion, all that stuff. Just curious, when you saw Conor Benn get $15 million from Zuffa Boxing, what did you think?
The first thoughts were, I was like, are you kidding me? I don't even know who this guy is.
But it's just hurtful to see the money go that way for somebody that, for me, is not at the top of his field. He's a great boxer. I'm a fan of his. I love watching his fights because it's always exciting. He always gives it all. But in that division, he's nowhere near the best.
These fighters typically demonstrate unwavering UFC loyalty, but cracks are emerging. According to Dana White himself, the UFC offered him a massive $30 million for fighting young, hungry potential star Tom Aspinall. However, for a proposed matchup against Alex Pereira, someone nearing career's end, that offer was halved. Essentially, the UFC would pay more to entice John into an Aspinall fight and potentially build the next star's power off his reputation. For an aging Pereira, absolutely not.
When I talked through Tom Aspinall's purses, I nearly fell off the f***ing chair. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that if that was our business, it'd be making 10 times as much money. His return is going to be massive when it comes. And as an organisation, they need him. Forget he needs the UFC. He actually don't need the UFC now. But they need him because they need heavyweight stars on stars full stop.
It was potential Jon Jones opponent Francis Ngannou who best summarized the situation.
You are a prospect and you are a finisher. Second round stoppage. When do you want to get back in here?
Whenever, Dana, I'm broke right now. I just need some money to maintain some camps. It'll be nice if I could get a performance bonus. I could be here in July, I'm ready.
If they refused compromise in negotiations with Jon Jones of all people, the fighter Dana constantly proclaims as the greatest ever. Imagine what happens to ordinary fighters. Perhaps ironically, the same monetary difference, $15 million, was identical to the amount given to a boxer that triggered one of the biggest fighter pay controversies in recent memory. A major UFC criticism involves Dana White losing some interest. He focuses more on power slap, other ventures, and most notably Zuffa Boxing. Excellent observation. Dana's always been passionate about boxing, even before mixed martial arts. With Turki Al-Sheikh's assistance and deep financial resources, he began making serious boxing progress. The most controversial moment occurred when he signed arguably his biggest name boxer to the Zuffa roster, Conor Benn, offering him $15 million for a single bout. While absolutely elite and entering his prime, Conor Benn lacks the star power of Canelo Alvarez or Anthony Joshua. In the UFC, he'd likely rank as a top 10 competitor, earning under $100K per fight. Here, Dana White publicly provided Conor Benn what would probably represent a payday only one or two fighters ever received in UFC history. This created significant friction among MMA fans, media, and especially fighters. It even prompted Conor Benn's former boxing promoter Eddie Hearn to somewhat enter the MMA realm. He recently signed Tom Aspinall to an agreement, helping promote his brand and essentially increasing his earnings. At UFC London, MVP actually entered to a Michael Jackson song titled "They Don't Care About Us," clearly messaging the company. Leading up to the event, Nathaniel Wood, who's 11-3 in the UFC, expressed heartbreak over his expected earnings for competing. During the event itself, Danny Henry, who finished heavily hyped Curtis Campbell, took the microphone and declared he's broke and can barely afford training camps. Somehow, circumstances worsened after the event concluded. Video emerged of Nathaniel Wood using public transportation home across London, while still wearing his fight attire. Whether this was the actual reason or not, it highlighted that the UFC now covers expenses for only one corner person, not entire teams. Perhaps it was simply his more economical choice. Days after the event, Main eventer Lerone Murphy announced he was selling his fight shorts on eBay. He just helped sell out the iconic O2 Arena, yet was selling his memorabilia for additional income. Everything combined presents a terrible image for the UFC. Yesterday's superstars aren't satisfied. Today's major names feel frustrated, and lower-tier fighters claim they cannot afford continuing in this sport. With this Netflix card featuring Francis Ngannou and Ronda Rousey, it truly feels like an unusual period for this sport and fighter compensation. Some positives exist with increased bonuses and another potential company entering MMA through Netflix, but tremendous controversies and negatives persist. Predicting future developments is impossible, but with all this attention, something must change soon. We simply hope fighters receive compensation more aligned with other sports. Thanks for watching. We recently produced an in-depth analysis of adjusting Gachi, combat sports history's most self-destructive fighting style. If you enjoyed this content, you'll definitely appreciate that. You can view it here.